I never thought a single phone call could shatter my world, until I heard her voice trembling on the other end. "We need to talk about your husband." My heart stopped. The woman I trusted most, my best friend, was hiding a secret that would destroy everything I believed in. And what I discovered next, it was even worse than betrayal. It was obsession. I always believed we had the perfect marriage. Michael and I met in college, fell in love quickly, and built a life most people envied. He was charming, dependable, and the kind of man who made me feel safe. For 10 years, I wore my wedding ring with pride, believing it symbolized trust, loyalty, and an unshakable bond. Our home was warm, filled with laughter and memories. Weekend dinners with friends, vacations to the beach, and lazy Sundays in bed made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. I trusted Michael completely, so much that I never questioned his late-night meetings or the business trips that seemed to happen more often than before. Then there was Emma, my best friend since high school. She was practically family, always there during birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. She even helped plan my wedding, standing by my side as my maid of honor. If anyone knew the ins and outs of my marriage, it was her. Emma was the kind of friend you could call at 2 a.m. with a broken heart, and she'd show up without hesitation. So when I saw her name pop up on my phone that night, I didn't hesitate to answer. But her voice wasn't the usual cheerful tone I knew. It was shaky, almost afraid. "We need to talk," she said. "It's about Michael." My stomach tightened. The words felt sharp, cutting through the comfort I'd built around my life. I wanted to believe it was something small, something that could be explained away. But deep down, a part of me already knew this wasn't something small. Over the next few minutes, Emma unraveled truths I wasn't ready to hear. She had seen him, at a hotel late at night, with another woman. Worse, she had confronted him. But instead of guilt, Michael's reaction left her shaken. He had laughed, brushed it off, and warned her to stay out of his business. I sat there, numb, as the words sank in. My perfect marriage? It was built on lies. And my best friend? She had kept this from me until she couldn't anymore. But what hurt the most wasn't Michael's betrayal. It was the suspicion I couldn't shake. The feeling that Emma wasn't just a witness to his infidelity. She might have been part of it. The days following Emma's confession felt like a blur. I tried to act normal, but the seed of doubt had already taken root. Every time Michael's phone buzzed, every time he left the room to take a call, my mind raced with questions I was too scared to ask. I began to notice the small things first, the way he guarded his phone, always keeping it face down or taking it with him, even to the bathroom. The sudden cologne he started wearing, one I had never picked out. And the late nights at work that had become so frequent, I could no longer remember the last time we'd had dinner together. But what haunted me most was Emma's hesitation. She had been nervous, evasive, almost as if she was holding something back. I replayed our conversation in my head, over and over. Why hadn't she told me sooner? And why did her voice crack when I asked if there was more to the story? I decided to test the waters. That night, as we sat on the couch watching TV, I casually asked Michael about his day. "Long meeting," he said, not even looking up from his phone. "With who?" I pressed, my tone light, but my heart pounding. "Just the team," he replied, his answer too quick, too rehearsed. I forced a smile, pretending to let it go, but my mind was already racing. What team? He hadn't mentioned any new projects, and I knew his usual work crew by name. Something wasn't adding up. The next day, I texted Emma, asking her to meet for coffee. When she arrived, her eyes darted nervously around the cafe. She barely touched her drink, and her hands trembled as she stirred it. "Emma," I said, leaning closer, "I need you to tell me the truth. All of it." Her eyes welled with tears. "I can't, Sarah. It's complicated." "Complicated how?" My voice rose, earning a few glances from nearby tables. She hesitated before whispering. "He threatened me." My breath caught. "Michael? He threatened you?" She nodded. "He said if I told you, I'd regret it." "But Sarah," she paused, tears streaming down her face. "There's more. I didn't just see him with her. I saw how he looked at her." My stomach churned. "What do you mean?" Emma's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Like he was obsessed. Like she was all he could see. The words hit me like a punch. My mind spiraled, flashing through memories, moments I had dismissed. The sudden changes, the distance, the coldness in his touch. That night, I couldn't sleep. I waited until Michael dozed off, then crept downstairs and opened his laptop. My hands shook as I guessed his password. It took 3 tries, but then it opened. What I found shattered me. Emails. Dozens of them. Not just to the woman Emma mentioned, but to Emma herself. Messages filled with compliments, late-night confessions, and things far too intimate to be innocent. My best friend, my husband, the two people I trusted most had betrayed me. But as I scrolled further, something else caught my eye: messages he had deleted, recovered in the email archives. Messages that weren't just romantic but dark, possessive. "I can't stop thinking about you. You belong to me. I'll do anything to keep you." My heart pounded in my chest. These weren't just flirtations. This was something else, something dangerous. I closed the laptop, my pulse racing. I wasn't just betrayed. I was in danger. I sat in the dark, my fingers trembling as I closed the laptop. My mind refused to stop replaying the words I had just read. The emails weren't just messages. They were confessions of obsession. Michael's words weren't those of a husband having a fleeting affair. They were possessive, controlling, dangerous. But it was Emma's replies that broke me. "I can't stop either. I think about you all the time. I don't know how to handle this." Had she tried to resist him? Or had she given in? My stomach churned at the thought. The next morning, I pretended everything was fine. I kissed Michael goodbye, even forcing a smile as he walked out the door. But the moment he left, I called Emma. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold. She hesitated. "Sarah, No. Meet me at the park. Noon. No excuses." When I saw her, she looked different, tired, worn down, almost as if she hadn't slept. Her eyes darted nervously, as if she was afraid someone might be watching. I didn't waste time. "How long has it been going on?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked away, tears filling her eyes. "Emma," I snapped. 6 months, she finally whispered. "But it's not what you think." "Not what I think." I scoffed. "You slept with my husband." She shook her head furiously. "No. I mean, yes, we kissed. Once. But it wasn't supposed to happen." He kept pushing. Sending messages, showing up at my apartment, leaving gifts. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "And you didn't tell me?" "I tried," she cried. "But he threatened me, Sarah. He said he'd ruin my life. He said he'd tell you I seduced him." My chest tightened. "And did you?" She looked horrified. "No. I swear it wasn't me. I tried to stop it, but..." Her voice broke. "He's obsessed with me, Sarah. And I don't know how to make it stop." Her words confirmed my worst fears. This wasn't just infidelity, it was something darker. But what scared me more was the flicker of doubt in my mind. What if Emma wasn't telling the whole truth? That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. Every creak of the house made me jump. When Michael came home, I tried to act normal, but he noticed immediately. "You're quiet tonight," he said, his eyes studying me. "I'm just tired." He moved closer, brushing my hair back. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" I flinched at his touch, pulling away. "Of course." But his eyes darkened. "Are you sure? You seem distant." The way he looked at me made my skin crawl. It wasn't the warm, loving gaze I once knew. It felt calculated, like he was studying my reaction. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I heard his phone buzz. My pulse quickened. He was asleep, his breathing steady. Carefully, I reached for the phone on his nightstand. One new message. From Emma. "I can't do this anymore." My heart dropped. I turned off the screen and slipped the phone back into place, my hands shaking. I barely slept. The next morning, I confronted him. "Why is Emma texting you?" His expression didn't even change. She needed advice. Something about work. I stared at him, trying to read his face. "That's all." He stepped closer. "What's this really about, Sarah? Are you jealous?" I froze. "Jealous?" He smirked, reaching out to cup my face. "Don't be ridiculous. You're the only woman I've ever loved." But his words felt rehearsed, empty. The next day, Emma didn't answer my calls. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Panic set in. What if she was right? What if Michael wouldn't let her walk away? That evening, Michael came home early. He had flowers, my favorite ones. "I thought we could have a nice dinner tonight," he said, smiling. But all I could think about was Emma. Where was she? Was she safe? I tried to eat, but my stomach churned. Michael noticed. "You're not hungry?" I shook my head. "Not feeling well." He reached across the table and took my hand. "You've been acting strange lately, Sarah. Is something wrong?" I forced a smile. "Just stress." His grip tightened. "You're sure that's all?" I nodded, but deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before everything fell apart. And as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that Michael already knew the truth, that I knew everything. The next morning, I woke up to an eerie silence. Michael was already gone, leaving no note, no text. The uneasy feeling that had been building inside me over the past few days had reached its breaking point. Emma was still not answering her phone. I tried calling her again, voicemail. Panic gripped my chest. I needed answers. Determined, I drove to Emma's apartment. Her car was in the driveway, but the blinds were drawn, and the lights were off. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Emma! I called out. Still nothing. I reached for my phone to call the police, but then I saw it. Michael's car, parked 2 blocks down, partially hidden behind a tree. My breath caught. What was he doing here? I turned back to the door and tried the handle. It was unlocked. My heart raced as I stepped inside. Emma! I called out, my voice trembling. The apartment was cold and dark, but the faint sound of running water came from the bathroom. I moved cautiously, every creak of the floorboards amplifying my fear. I pushed the door open and froze. Emma was sitting on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest, soaking wet as if she had been in the shower fully clothed. Her eyes were wide, empty, and red from crying. Oh my God, Emma! I dropped to my knees. What happened? She flinched at my touch, her lips trembling. He was here, she whispered. Michael? She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. He said I couldn't leave him, that he wouldn't let me. My blood ran cold. What did he do? I demanded. He didn't hurt me, she said quickly, but her voice broke. He just wouldn't leave. He kept saying I belonged to him, that no one else would ever love me the way he does. I clenched my fists, rage and fear colliding inside me. We have to call the police. No, she grabbed my arm. You don't understand. He knows everything. He said if I told anyone, he'd ruin both of us. He said he'd. Her voice broke, but I didn't need her to finish. I already knew. Michael wasn't just obsessed, he was dangerous. Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a text. Michael, come home. Now. My heart pounded in my chest. I looked at Emma, terrified. I have to go, I said. But I'm coming back. I promise. When I pulled into the driveway, Michael was waiting at the door. His expression was calm, too calm. Where were you? He asked, stepping closer. Running errands, I lied, trying to keep my voice steady. He studied me for a moment before reaching out to brush my hair back. You've been so distant lately, he said softly. I feel like you're hiding something from me. My skin crawled under his touch, but I forced a smile. Of course not. His eyes darkened. Good. Because you know how much I hate secrets. I pulled away, mumbling something about needing a shower, and locked myself in the bathroom. My hands shook as I turned on the water, my mind racing. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't pretend anymore. But before I could make a plan, I heard a noise, a sharp knock on the door. Sarah! I froze. Open the door. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I'm in the shower. Now. The urgency in his voice sent chills down my spine. I opened the door just enough to see his face. Is there something you want to tell me? He asked, his eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Don't lie to me, he hissed. Terror flooded through me. Let go, Michael. But he didn't. Instead, he dragged me out of the bathroom and shoved me onto the bed. I saw you, he growled. At Emma's. Do you think I wouldn't notice? Do you think I wouldn't follow you? I tried to push him off, but he pinned me down. You're mine, Sarah. Do you hear me? Mine. Stop it. I screamed. And then he froze. The sound of sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights flashed through the window. Michael's grip loosened, his eyes wide with shock. No, he whispered. I shoved him off and ran to the door just as the police burst in. Sarah, one of the officers called. Are you okay? I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Michael didn't resist when they handcuffed him. He just stood there, glaring at me as they led him away. This isn't over, he said coldly. But it was. Or so I thought. The house felt hollow after Michael was taken away. The silence was deafening, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands trembling as I replayed everything that had happened. The officers had reassured me that I was safe, but their words did little to calm the storm inside me. Michael's final words echoed in my head. This isn't over. I couldn't sleep that night. Every shadow on the wall felt like him, lurking, waiting to return. The logical part of me knew he was in custody, but fear doesn't listen to logic. I double-checked the locks on the doors and windows 3 times before finally collapsing onto the couch, exhausted but unable to rest. The next day, Emma called. Her voice was shaky, and I could hear the guilt weighing her down. I'm so sorry, Sarah, she whispered. For everything. I wanted to scream, to ask her why she didn't stop it sooner. why she let it get this far. But I didn't have the energy for anger anymore. "It's over," I said, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. "Is it?" Her question hung in the air, heavy with doubt. "You don't know Michael like I do. He doesn't give up." Her words sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that he wouldn't come back, but deep down I wasn't sure. Over the next few weeks, I tried to pick up the pieces of my life. I filed for divorce, changed the locks, and installed security cameras around the house. Emma and I agreed to keep our distance, both of us too scarred to rebuild what was broken between us. But the damage Michael had done wasn't easy to erase. I couldn't go grocery shopping without looking over my shoulder. I jumped every time the phone rang. And at night, I slept with a knife under my pillow, just in case. Then came the letters. The first one appeared in my mailbox 3 weeks after Michael's arrest. No return address, no signature, just 4 words written in bold black ink. "You'll never escape me." I dropped the letter, my heart racing. I called the police, but they said there was no evidence it came from him. A few days later, another letter arrived. "I see you." I installed more cameras and avoided being home alone. But the fear kept growing, wrapping around me like a vice. One night, I woke to the sound of footsteps outside my window. I grabbed the knife from under my pillow and crept to the living room, my heart pounding. The security monitor showed nothing, but I knew someone had been there. The footprints in the snow the next morning confirmed it. The police patrolled the area but found no one. "It's probably just paranoia," one officer said. "You've been through a lot." But it wasn't paranoia. A week later, my front door was left slightly ajar when I came home from work. Nothing was missing, but the sheets on my bed were rumpled, and a faint smell of cologne lingered in the air. His cologne. I broke down. I couldn't live like this, always waiting for the next threat, the next shadow. That's when I made the decision. I sold the house. I packed my things, filed for a restraining order, and moved across the country to a small town where no one knew me. It wasn't easy starting over, but it was the only way to feel safe again. Emma disappeared too. She quit her job, deleted her social media, and left town without telling anyone where she was going. Sometimes, I wonder if Michael ever found her. Even now, months later, I still look over my shoulder. I still flinch when I hear footsteps behind me. And every time I check the mail, I brace myself for another letter. But none have come, yet. The nightmares, though? Those haven't stopped. It's been 6 months since I left my old life behind. 6 months of trying to rebuild myself from the ashes of betrayal, fear, and obsession. The small town I moved to feels like a different world, quiet, peaceful, untouched by the chaos I left behind. I changed my name, dyed my hair, and learned how to blend into the background. But no matter how far I run, I can't escape the memories. I still hear his voice in my dreams, Michael's chilling words echoing in the back of my mind. "You'll never escape me." Some nights, I wake up drenched in sweat, reaching for the knife I no longer keep under my pillow. And every time my phone rings, my heart skips a beat, afraid it'll be him. But I'm not the same woman I was before. I'm stronger now. I had no choice but to become stronger. Looking back, I realize how easily I ignored the red flags. How I brushed aside the small doubts and convinced myself that the man I loved could never hurt me. I wanted so badly to believe in the life we built that I ignored the cracks forming beneath the surface. I thought trust was enough. I thought love was enough. But it wasn't. Michael taught me that monsters don't always come with snarling teeth and dark shadows. Sometimes they wear wedding rings and tell you they love you while destroying you piece by piece. And Emma? I still don't know how to feel about her. Part of me wants to forgive her, to believe she was just another victim caught in Michael's twisted web. But another part of me can't forget the messages, the lies, the betrayal. Forgiveness feels impossible. But I've learned something important through all of this. No one can save you except yourself. I waited too long to see the truth. I let my fear keep me trapped in a toxic cycle, hoping things would get better. But the moment I chose to fight for myself, to walk away and start over, was the moment I reclaimed my life. It hasn't been easy. Starting over never is. But every day, I remind myself that I survived. I survived betrayal. I survived obsession. I survived the darkest chapter of my life. And now I'm free. I don't know if Michael will ever find me again. I don't know if Emma is safe or if she still lives in fear. But I do know this. I will never let anyone make me feel powerless again. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that love should never cost you your peace, your safety, or your sanity. The moment it does, it's no longer love, it's control. And control is just another form of violence. I tell my story now not to relive the pain, but to warn others. Pay attention to the signs, trust your instincts, and never be afraid to walk away. Because sometimes, the person you think you know best is the one who can hurt you the most. What would you have done if you were in my position? Could you have forgiven Emma, or would you have walked away for good? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm dying to hear them. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more shocking stories like this one. Trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.